Guys, check this out. This right here is the Airbolt. Quite simply, it's the most intelligent and secure smart lock ever made. Know your valuables are safe 24/7 when you use it because it's right on your smartphone. It's packed with state-of-the-art security features, and Airbolt lets you easily protect and monitor your belongings right on your phone. You always know where your luggage or your backpack, your laptop is, and who's handling it, and it secures your bags while you're at the gym, at work, on your couch, wherever you are. With Airbolt, you'll feel complete peace of mind anywhere you go. Easily lock and unlock all your Airbolts using the free app on iOS and Android. Simply use a backup code if something happens to your phone. Control all your locks from the app, including luggage, backpacks, briefcases, gym lockers, storage, and more. Airbolt alerts you if someone walks away with your stuff. Can't remember where you left it? Use the app to check where it was last seen. Grant access to anyone from anywhere in the world with various levels of permission and security. Keep cybercriminals out of your business with industry-leading AES 128-bit encryption in every lock. Using a unique key, TSA agents can lock and unlock your Airbolt without having to cut or damage it. Whenever your Airbolt lock opens, it records a detailed history of when and how long it was unlocked for. The lithium polymer battery lasts up to 1 year per charge and includes a standard micro USB cable right in the box. It's built from heavy-duty metal alloy and stainless steel. Airbolt is weather-resistant too, so you're ready for anything. Know your valuables are safe 24/7. You can get it by going to www.getairbolt.com. Don't forget, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee and a 1-year warranty. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Well, I'm going to get right down to it, guys. We've got 2 new posts from our favorite Anon. Actually, it may be more than that at this point, but last night there was a post that said, "Boom week ahead. Treason doesn't pay well in the end." And then Eyes On with a link to Representative Doug Collins' Twitter feed. Now, Representative Doug Collins is a Republican member of the Judiciary Committee, and we know that he has been extremely proactive in the past, helping to release testimony of members of the former administration, DOJ, FBI, people that have come before the committee in order to give their testimony as it relates to Spygate. So we have a tweet here from Jeff Carlson, The Markets Work, and he embeds a clip of Collins speaking on Hannity. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that, because this might have something to do with this boom week and the fact that we need to keep eyes on Collins.
Question in a few short seconds we have. You courageously have released the closed-door testimony of Bruce and Nellie Orr and the General Counsel Baker and Strzok and Page. There are 53 other closed-door testimonies that I am aware of. Will you continue that release?
Yes, get ready for that. I would tell anybody to stay close to Twitter, stay close to the next few weeks. We'll be releasing the rest of those.
Any this week, sir?
Probably not this week, but we're getting ready for next week. We want to let the Democrats, their hypocrisy shine this week, and we're going to get back and watch what Bill Barr's doing, and we're going to get back exposing this to the American people.
Right. Congressman Collins, Georgia, thank you.
So perhaps not this week, but next, it sounds like. Eyes on Representative Collins. This is the man to watch. Now, what does the MAGA patriot Steve have to say? He says, "Holy crap, Doug Collins just said he will be releasing the private testimony of up to 53 people as early as next week on Twitter. Collins is, of course, responsible for making public the transcripts of testimony by Strzok, Page, Orr, and others. Baker, don't forget about Baker. Perhaps there's going to be some really interesting things coming out when this gets released. I would have to say that I believe that it will. Collins has not let us down this far, so let's keep an eye out on Representative Doug Collins." The next post 3334. Oh, and I should have said that the Doug Collins post was post 3333. So post 3334, entitled "No Sleep DC," says attempts by Dems, fake news, and those guilty of treason to shape the public narrative prior to providing falsehoods will fail. Truth to light. No sleep in DC. And finally, our favorite Anon tags another Anon's post, and it is this meme right here. It's Comey standing infamously on that highway in the Midwest, and incoming is a Moab. And the word S-H-I-T is written across. Now, we know that the Comey report should be here any day now. And then will be the D-Class, and then will be the IG report. So all of these things that we're discussing are about to come out. Now, on the note of Comey, let's hear something from Representative John Ratcliffe. Now next, perhaps in conjunction with this, we have an article from the Gateway Pundit showing that Representative John Ratcliffe is talking about James Comey, saying either he is or should be under investigation for violations of the Espionage Act. Wow. Former U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of Texas and Congressman John Ratcliffe joined Maria Bartiromo this morning on Sunday Morning Futures. This was yesterday. During their discussion, Ratcliffe told Maria Bartiromo that fired FBI Director James Comey is under investigation for violations of the Espionage Act. No wonder Comey has had such a difficult time as of late. This is information provided by the conservative Treehouse. Ratcliffe said, "As I listened to that, Jim Comey is proud and wouldn't change a thing? Really? He's proud that he put Peter Strzok in charge of investigating Donald Trump, the same Peter Strzok who, while he was investigating Donald Trump, promised to F him and to stop him. He's proud of his handpicked Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who lied under oath, lied to the Inspector General, and has been criminally referred for that. And we know Jim's proud of himself, but the Inspector General found him insubordinate, and many of us believe that he either is or should be under investigation for violating the Espionage Act, for recording his conversations with President Trump in the Oval Office and then intentionally leaking classified information to start this investigation." Let's go ahead and take a listen to the clip from John Ratcliffe on Sunday Morning Futures.
Jim Comey is proud and wouldn't change a thing, really. He's proud that he put Peter Strzok in charge of investigating Donald Trump, the same Peter Strzok who, while he was investigating Donald Trump, promised to F him and to stop him. He's proud of his hand-picked Deputy Director, Andy McCabe, who lied under oath, lied to the Inspector General, and has been criminally referred for that. And, of course, we know Jim's proud of himself, but the Inspector General found him insubordinate, and many of us believe that he either is or should be under investigation for violating the Espionage Act, for recording his conversations with President Trump in the Oval Office and then intentionally leaking classified information to start this investigation. So, you know, Maria, as you know, as a former federal prosecutor, I've worked with hundreds of FBI agents, and over the last 2 years, they haven't used the word proud once to describe Jim Comey. They use words like embarrassed and ashamed. And every time he sends out a tweet or pens an op-ed or conducts another town hall, he just tarnishes the brand of the premier law enforcement agency in the world that he unfortunately once headed.
So are we going to be able to trust the FBI again? Will there be accountability? I want to ask you about accountability for Jim Comey, Peter Strzok, and also John Brennan, because I'm being told that the director of the CIA is responsible for all counterintelligence operations. That would be John Brennan. Are we going to see accountability for all of the above?
Well, here's what we know about John Brennan. In August of 2016, he briefed then Democratic Senator Harry Reid on the Steele dossier. Brennan later testified under oath that the Steele dossier played no part of the intelligence community assessment. That was a demonstrably false statement, and there are classified documents that I believe prove that. I believe that there will be accountability on all fronts, Maria, for a couple of reasons. You know, there's an old saying that justice delayed is justice denied, but I think there's a Mueller exception to that rule. We've had to wait 2 years on Bob Mueller, but now that his report is out and there is no collusion, we can move forward. And within a month, the Inspector General's report will come out, and notwithstanding what Jim Comey says, I think that the Inspector General, looking at leaking and looking at lying and looking at FISA abuse, is going to say that Jim Comey's FBI didn't perform as the law required. But the biggest movement on the board in that regard, again, is the Attorney General, Bill Barr, who has pledged to get to the bottom of a Trump-Russia conspiracy that doesn't make any sense, and the predicate for it, and those that were not telling the truth, Donald Trump was telling the truth when he said there was no collusion.
Yeah.
And Jim Comey and folks in our law enforcement community and John Brennan and Jim Clapper and folks in the media, none of them were telling the truth.
Right.
And I think there'll be accountability through an attorney general that is promised to get to the bottom of it.
Real quick before you go, John Solomon at The Hill reported some important news this week because we basically got the evidence that they wanted to destroy Donald Trump before the election.
Right. And you know, the first biggest part of that story, Maria, is that we're just now seeing that. Those are documents that should have been produced previously, and they weren't. But needless to say, they do go specifically to the point about the Steele dossier, what the FBI knew. Assistant Secretary of State Kathleen Kavalik had a memo of her conversation with Christopher Steele where she discussed the dossier. And in one conversation, she determined that Christopher Steele was not being truthful and that the information in the dossier was demonstrably false. And she communicated that to the FBI. So our own government knew that the source of the dossier was not credible and knew that the dossier itself was not truthful before it was ever used.
That's right.
Before a FISA court to get an application to spy on an American citizen, Carter Page. Again, this is one of the things that has to be looked at and fortunately will be looked at. I will tell your viewers, Maria, that I feel very good about having Bill Barr as the head of our Justice Department at this point in time.
Certainly seems like an honest broker. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Did you hear that, guys? Did you hear that? Boom week indeed. This is it. John Ratcliffe, as a consummate professional, knows exactly what he's talking about. He knows that the leader of the Federal Bureau of Investigation not only committed violations of the Espionage Act, but lied under oath. We know that the former leader of the Clowns in America also most likely committed violations, also most likely committed treason, also lied under oath. This is the point we have all been looking to reach. We are witnessing the destruction of the old guard. This is finally the point in time in which justice will be served. Thank God for Bill Barr. Now, again, we have a tweet from my friend Methods, who posted an article from RT which states that the Ecuadorian government is reportedly greenlighting the U.S. request to provide it access to the documents and electronic devices left behind in the embassy by the former resident. Let's go ahead and take a look at the article. So it's entitled, Ecuador Will Give U.S. All Documents and Devices Assange Left in the London Embassy. Ecuador's Attorney General has informed J.A.'s lawyer that the WL co-founder's files, computer, mobile phones, and other electronic devices will be seized during a search of the London embassy and sent to the U.S. WL Editor-in-Chief Kristen Hrafson tried unsuccessfully to retrieve Assange's personal belongings from Ecuador's UK embassy, where he had been holed up for almost 7 years before his arrest and incarceration last month. However, the Ecuadorian government has reportedly greenlighted a U.S. request to provide it with access to the documents and electronic devices left behind by the jailed WL editor after he was hauled out of the embassy by the British police on April 11th. The searches are set to be conducted by police on May 20th. El Paz reported, citing a notice sent to Assange's Ecuadorian lawyer Carlos Poveda. Personal files, A's computer, mobile phones, memory sticks, CDs, and any other electronic devices uncovered during the searches will then be seized and sent to the U.S. as part of Ecuador's response to the Department of Justice's judicial request. The U.S. is currently building a case to extradite J.A. on hacking charges. The files contain troves of sensitive information, include communication with lawyers and other legal documents, which, the lawyers argue, deprive him of the right to a proper defense. Having this data will potentially allow the U.S. to build and create new charges to extradite Assange in violation of Ecuador's own asylum policies. News of the looming handover came as a bolt out of the blue for J.A.'s defense team, Preveda told RT Spanish, adding that it's impossible to be sure that his things in the embassy haven't been tampered with already. Since Mr. J.A. left the embassy, we cannot know for sure what has been happening inside these rooms, he says. Lawyers have requested CCTV records for the period since before before Assange's arrest, Poveda said. The U.S. has until June 12th to build a case for extradition. Last week, J.A., who has been serving a 50-week sentence in a maximum security Guantanamo Bay-style prison for skipping bail, faced an extradition judge for the first time. The WL co-founder said he would not surrender himself to extradition for simply doing journalism that has earned his site many international awards. I think that the seizure of these electronic devices and files should also help the American lawmakers, DOJ, and people within the FBI also create new charges against potentially other people. Perhaps people associated with the leaked emails of one HRC, maybe even HRC herself. Perhaps even building a case for the murder of one Democratic committee staffer. That would have been someone with the initials SR. I think we all know who Mr. Rich is. I think this is a very, very exciting development, and it guarantees, essentially, that there is going to be additional information found. Think of everything that WL has ever been sent. I'm sure that JA went into the embassy with additional information that he probably has yet to release. I think that this definitely will provide the United States with lots of additional information, specifically things that will help us building a case against HRC. I am going to be keeping a close eye on this story. I think that we will probably see more about this very soon, seeing as they only have until June 12th to build that case for extradition. This really has the potential to be a major game changer. Now, finally, President Trump is blasting the FBI and Director Chris Wray for protecting the Mueller and DNC deep state swamp. We have the tweets right here. Donald Trump said, just another abuse of power in a long series of abuses of power by the Democrats that began during the former administration, continued through the Mueller FBI operation, and now the baton has been passed to Jerry Nadler to continue to abuse power to harass President Trump. And the Democrat National Committee, the Democrat Party apparatus, has been caught using donor dollars to collude with Russian intelligence to attack a domestic political opponent. That would be President Trump. The FBI has no leadership. The director is protecting the same gang that tried to overthrow the president through an illegal coup. This looks like it potentially was a quote directly from Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch. FBI Director Chris Wray has taken every opportunity he has had to excuse and defend the scandal-plagued FBI and to attack President Trump. Swamp creature FBI Director Christopher Wray and FBI brass have yet to condemn the former administration spying on the opposition party during the 2016 election. They have yet to even admit that it took place. The FBI sent several undercover agents to infiltrate the campaign and entrap Trump campaign officials in nefarious acts. The liberal mainstream media is just starting to admit that this happened during the election. It is still not clear how many deep state FBI plants were used to entrap Trump campaign officials. Chris Wray knows, but is not ready to condemn this FBI practice. Apparently, the current leadership at the FBI believes it is an acceptable practice to spy on Republican candidates and their staff. On Tuesday, Chris Wray told the Senate Appropriations Committee that Bill Barr's use of the word spying to describe the spying on the Trump campaign and administration was not the term I would use. Wray also told the committee he has no evidence that the former administration was spying on Trump. Now, it was noted to me by several people in my comment section that Wray said he personally had no evidence. That doesn't mean the FBI doesn't have the evidence. However, as director of the FBI, one would think that he would be aware of such evidence. President Trump has had enough. On Sunday, President Trump finally lashed out at the conflicted FBI director, accusing Wray of protecting that deep state gang. It's clear that Chris Wray is not up for the job, and President Trump is no fool. Now, it's also possible that this could be some type of a ruse between President Trump and Christopher Wray to allow the FBI to maybe perhaps regain some credibility, not show their hand to these deep state coup plotters, and make it look as if there is some turmoil between President Trump and Christopher Wray. We have yet to see. We don't know. This is basically something we're going to have to watch play out in front of us. But it is true that Christopher Wray did not admit that there was any type of spying going on. Christopher Wray denied having any evidence that spying had occurred. But It was really interesting the way that he phrased it. He put the Democrats, basically at ease by saying that there was no such evidence. Again, it was saying that he personally had no evidence, not that the FBI didn't have the evidence. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. Who knows at this point? It's all a big mystery. Now, it's also come out in the last several days that George Papadopoulos had said that he was potentially set up by the FBI in a sting, where he was given a briefcase with $10,000 prior to going on an airplane, and instead of taking that $10,000 with him, he gave it to his lawyer because he knew something was fishy about the transaction. Well, as soon as he landed, the FBI was there waiting for him. They told him that this is what you get when you work for Donald Trump, and they were looking for the briefcase with $10,000, and I think they were fairly dismayed when they couldn't find it. So it sounds like it was a pretty obvious setup on behalf of the FBI. Hopefully, President Trump can get the DOJ to look into that bundle of $10,000 and make note of the marks that are on them. I'm sure that the serial numbers have been noted somewhere in an FBI database. More breaking news about the former administration's State Department. A State Department employee, Jonathan Weiner, longtime John Kerry associate, was involved in the sinister actions pushing the fake Russian dossier. The Gateway Pundit has put together a list of actions by longtime John Kerry associate and former Obama State Department Deputy Assistant Jonathan Weiner related to the distribution of the Steele dossier. This information is damning to the former administration in aligning them to the fake Trump-Russia collusion scam. Now, according to the former president's State Department, Jonathan Weiner served as U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for International Law Enforcement, where he was one of the architects of U.S. international policies and strategies on promoting and harmonizing financial transparency, as well as on cross-border law enforcement issues such as cybercrime, small arms trafficking, illegal immigration, and money laundering. He initiated the establishment of international law enforcement academies in Bangkok and Gaborone and served as the first General Secretary of the Global Forum on Corruption. How ironic. Mr. Weiner previously served for 10 years as counsel and principal legislative assistant to then U.S. Senator John F. Kerry. During his time at the State Department, Weiner met with the fake Trump-Russia dossier author Christopher Steele, according to the Weekly Standard in February 2018. Weiner shared, in 2016, Steele and I met in Washington and discussed the information now known as the dossier. I was allowed to review, but not to keep, a copy of these reports to enable me to alert the State Department, Weiner writes. I prepared a 2-page summary and shared it with Weiner's boss at State, Victoria Nuland. Weiner shared a similar alibi on far-left CNN in July 2018. Let's take a listen.
All right, joining me right now is Jonathan Weiner. He's a former senior official at the State Department. He's known Christopher Steele for years. He was responsible for writing a 2-page summary of the dossier's contents, sharing it with the State Department officials, including former Secretary of State John Kerry. Jonathan, thanks for coming in.
Sure, glad to be here.
So you heard Lindsey Graham. Let's just start there. Lindsey Graham calls the substance of the dossier garbage. What do you say?
Well, I'd say that an awful lot of material in the dossier has been corroborated by events and information that we've come to see since. Other parts are still unknown whether they're going to be corroborated or not. Major elements of the dossier, I don't know any that have been disproven.
You have known Christopher Steele for years. You wrote very publicly in an op-ed the relationship, how you came about the information in the dossier, and so on and so forth. Do you trust his information over the years?
Well, while I was at the State Department, he provided me some 120 documents about Russia and Ukraine, entirely unrelated to the U.S. political system. It wasn't about Democrats or Republicans or anything partisan. It was about what Russia was doing in the national security area that was relevant to the United States. These documents were well received by the people who were doing Russia full-time within the Department of State, and that's why I continue to provide them. He did it because he felt it was information the United States government should have. Similarly, when he developed the information relating to 2016 and Russia's assault on our democracy and interference in our elections, he felt it was important that the U.S. government be aware of it. I did too. I think what we've seen from 2016 to 2018 is a lot of facts that have tended to further corroborate the concerns I had when I was first exposed to the material that was included later on in the dossier.
So at the time of this interview, the former State Department official Jonathan Weiner was still trying to push the idea that the Steele dossier was credible and that it had been verified. Well, we now know that it absolutely is not credible and that it was never verified. There was not a single verifiable piece of information inside that dossier. And the prime directive of the dossier was not to prove that Russia had tampered in American elections, but rather to try and prove that Donald Trump was just a bad person. And more than likely, they wanted to prove that he was an asset of the Russian government, a clearly ludicrous claim. But Jonathan Weiner, standing by his good friend, as he said, Christopher Steele, said that the information inside that dossier was verified. Now, it clearly shows a deeper thread of injustice throughout the United States government at that time as it relates to the creation of the Steele dossier. The entire organization, the apparatus that was working to push this fake and phony information, we're all absolutely pieces and employees of the former government, the former presidential administration of B.O. Barack Obama. But now we know that Weiner's actions involved in the distribution of the fake Steele dossier are more than Weiner let on. A series of notes from the former administration State Department, Kathleen Kvelic, show that she met with Steele along with Weiner. And she informed Weiner in an email the following day just how very helpful Weiner's assistance was in facilitating that meeting with his good friend Christopher Steele. We also later found out that Jonathan Weiner was a source for the infamous September 23, 2016 Isikoff article that the FBI used to justify obtaining the October 21, 2016 Carter Page FISA warrant, proposing to the FISA court that the article was completely separate evidence from the Steele dossier and therefore provided corroborating evidence. However, it was not. It was circuitous reporting. After facilitating the meeting between the State Department and Christopher Steele, it is widely suspected that Weiner then used the occasion to pass to Steele two dossier reports authored by well-known liar, fabricator, and Clinton political hack Cody Shearer. The Daily Caller reported in February of 2018. On Monday, the Judiciary Committee released a memo of its own which stated that Steele received at least two reports from a State Department official. The official is not identified in the report, but it was widely speculated to be Weiner. The memo says that Steele wrote an October 19, 2016 report that was kept separate from his 35-page dossier. The report was based on information that a State Department official received from a foreign sub-source who was in touch with an associate of friends of Bill and Hillary Clinton. The corrupt Weiner also provided garbage to the media on the fake Trump-Russia sham. A review of press clippings over the past year shows that Weiner has provided comment for numerous articles about Trump and the Russia investigation. He is quoted in a New Republic report entitled Trump's Russian Laundromat, as well as in several articles published by Crap Rag McClatchy. So it is rather suspect that 4 days after Steele's meeting with Kvelic and State Department that was facilitated by Weiner, a FISA warrant was filed connected to money laundering and Trump Tower. This happened to be the same day Steele admitted sending the Clinton-friendly documents to the FBI. Shearer, Weiner's accomplice, has a horrible record for creating fraudulent news stories attacking Republicans. If this extra dossier is as contrived as it sounds, it wouldn't be the first time that Shearer peddled fabulous information against a Republican presidential ticket in the waning days of a Clinton campaign. In 1992, Shearer championed the phony story that a poor fellow named Brett Kimberlin was rotting in Indiana jail, being kept incommunicado so that he couldn't tell the world about how Vice President Dan Quayle bought marijuana from him back in the 1970s. Yes, Kimberlin was a smuggler, and yes, he was indeed in jail for a string of BOMBINGs in Indianapolis. Shearer was willing to promote the fantastical tales of the Speedway BOMBER if that helped his friends, the Clintons. To sum it all up, it is one thing for the FBI to start several investigations into a potential sitting POTUS based on salacious and unverified claims from a paid operative of the Clinton campaign, Christopher Steele. But the FBI failed to also mention to the FISA court that their source of information also came from known Clinton political hacks like Shearer, who have a long history of lying and passing off fake dossiers. Jonathan Weiner facilitated the meeting between Kvalik and Steele that resulted in the Carter Page FISA. Weiner also provided the evidence in the form of the independent Isikoff article that the FBI used to obtain the Carter Page FISA warrant. Weiner also likely provided or assisted with evidence for the FISA warrant on the fake money laundering claims pushing fake information from longtime Clinton lackey Cody Shearer. So the general consensus here in this article shows us very, very deep ties between this person, Weiner, the Clintons, the Obama administration, and his particular interest in pushing the fake Steele dossier off because he was really good friends with Christopher Steele. More than likely, that's one of the reasons they chose to use Christopher Steele, because of his experience reporting on Russia for them, but also because he was willing to write this fake and phony document. I cannot wait to see Christopher Steele testify in Congress and for that testimony to be released to the public. This is probably going to be a big, big deal when it comes out. Now, corrupt FBI agent Peter Strzok laughed at the bogus PP reports in the liberal media at the same time the corrupt FISA app was being sent to the court. A text message from the former and fired corrupt FBI agent Peter Strzok was unearthed that shows him making fun of the PP news hitting the airwaves from Hillary Clinton at the same time his FBI was applying for a FISA warrant to spy on President Trump using the same bogus information. As was reported yesterday, newly unearthed information shows that Christopher Steele shared two different versions of the PP portion of the fake Russia Trump dossier used to spy on President Trump. This was discovered after a recent article released last week from John Solomon from The Hill about some notes uncovered by former Obama State Department employee Kathleen Kvalik. One thing that the Solomon article did not mention is information presented on the first page of Kvalik's notes, showing that the source for Steele's information is a high-level source in the Kremlin. However, this information directly contradicts the Steele dossier used by the FBI to spy on candidate and then President Trump, because originally it was told that it was employees at the Ritz-Carlton, not the high-level Russian at the Kremlin. But now there's been a new text message uncovered from corrupt FBI agent Peter Strzok and his lover Lisa Page. At the same time that the fake dossier was used for a FISA warrant to spy on candidate Trump, Strzok was making fun of the entire piece of work. Strzok texts Lisa Page and he says, Hillary, Russia and WL, and highest levels of Russian government and Putin, and drink. I don't know what that means. Strzok is making fun of the entire sham and laughing at all of America. Steele was a liar, and his dossier was a sham. The dossier ranks up there with Judge Kavanaugh being labeled a serial gang abuser, shall we say. Those who promoted it, like the corrupt cop Peter Strzok, abused their power and should face justice. Cannot agree more. So it looks like he is toasting to the fact that this information came out and he realizes this is just an absolutely ridiculous claim to be made. The only reason it was in there was just to try to make Donald Trump just look like a really horrible person. And what's really sad is that at the time that this came out, I remember people talking about it as if it was real. It was presented to the American public, that, well, look at this. This is what the State Department, this is what the government has determined is information about Donald Trump. It's worthwhile to report to you guys. Look at this. We know what kind of sick stuff Donald Trump is into. But it could not be further from the truth. This is absolutely not something our president would ever engage in, either now or in the past or any time in the future. And now we have more information from yet another person inside the dangerous cult that is currently on trial, whose leader is currently on trial, stating unequivocally that Claire Bronfman did in fact funnel illegal donations to win the favor of Hillary Clinton. Seagram's heiress and accused NXI-VM benefactor Claire Bronfman did in fact try to buy influence for the alleged SEX cult by illegally raising money for Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign, a former group member testified in court on Monday. Claire Bronfman funneled thousands of dollars into Clinton's campaign coffers, far in excess of legal limits to contributions, so that she could curry favor with the powerhouse political family, according to Mark Vicente. He's a documentary filmmaker and former member of the group that is accused of keeping women held against their will to be used for horrible, nefarious purposes. Claire Bronfman approached other people and said that she would like to make a campaign contribution, but she couldn't make it above a certain amount, Vicente testified in Brooklyn federal court on Monday. I wrote a check. She paid me back. Vicente said the check was for somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. Individual contributions to federal campaigns were capped at $2,300 at that time. Vicente could not recall whether the money went to Bill or Hillary, but admitted maybe it was her when prosecutor Mark Lesko reminded him that Hillary ran for president that year. There was a strong desire to meet people within politics, Vicente added. Now, members of the group and their families plunked down a total of $29,000 for Hillary's campaign that year, election records showed at the time. Bronfman, who used her fortune to fund the group and the whims of its leader, Keith Rainier, is accused of helping Rainier steal email passwords from perceived enemies, laundering money to help a non-citizen enter the U.S., and paying off debts Rainier racked up on the credit card of a dead girlfriend. She is also accused of recruiting and grooming young women to join a secret society within the group called DOS, which allegedly served as a harem for Rainier. The 40-year-old heiress pled guilty last month to charges of conspiracy to conceal and harbor an illegal alien for financial gain and fraudulent use of identification for her role in the group. Rainier has pleaded not guilty to charges including racketeering, conspiracy involving acts of exploitation of children, and possession of horrible things involving children. Rainier is literally on the chopping block at this point, and the person who's next is going to be Hillary Clinton, because you cannot funnel all of this money into Hillary Clinton's campaign and not draw the attention of her or anyone else. So I think that this is extremely, extremely exciting news, you guys, because it's really very, very, very clear that Hillary Clinton and this group have deep, deep ties. Let's keep our eyes out and watch what happens next. Boom week indeed. And finally, a study has come out showing the severe liberal bias in this search engine's top story section. While most conservatives know that Goggle has a serious liberal bias, a new study has proved that it may be worse than many even thought. According to a study published in the Columbia Journalism Review, 86% of Goggle's top stories come from just 20 news outlets, the most common being none other than left-leaning CNN. Look at this. Shows that CNN makes up just about 11% of all total impressions from the top 20 sources, followed by the New York Times and then the Washington Post, and then finally in the fourth spot, only 3% from Fox News, just barely beating out the BBC, a propaganda outlet from the United Kingdom. The audit found that CNN, New York Times, and the Washington Post make up 23% of all referrals on their own. These statistics underscore the degree of concentration of attention to a relatively narrow slice of news sources, the study's authors noted. The researchers also noted that prior research has shown that search engines can affect users' attitudes, shape opinions, alter perceptions, and reinforce stereotypes, as well as affect how voters come to be informed during elections. As such, media diversity is an important aspect to the way that Goggle or any other news aggregator curates sources and perspectives. They also found that a whopping 62.4% of article impressions from Goggle were from sources that are considered left-leaning, while only 11.3% were right-leaning. The remainder were from sources that do not have a bias ranking. Goggle has refused to allow Gateway Pundit to be included in their news section. Documents obtained by the Daily Caller discussed how a manual blacklist is used for undesirable content, which includes a manual review tool. On the blacklist are a number of conservative sites, including Gateway Military Pundit, Matt Walsh's blog, Gary North's blog, TeaPartyEconomist.com, Carolyn Glick's website, Conservative Tribune, a property of the Western Journal, and the website of the American Spectator. All pretty great news sources. If they are deciding which outlets they want to hide, it is unlikely that they aren't manually manipulating their results in favor of certain websites as well. I think this is, for you and I, guys, me and my friends, this is something we've known for a very, very long time. It's why I don't choose to use this particular search engine. It's why I use DuckDuckGo. I would highly recommend to anyone that you use any other search engine out there rather than the one that seems to be the go-to for most people. The word itself has become a verb meaning to search on the internet. I think that it's pretty disingenuous for this particular organization to pretend that they have anything but a very, very deep and steep left-leaning bias. It's very, very evident to me and anyone else who has been on the internet for any length of time, especially if you have a conservative type of mindset. It is dangerous to our very existence as a country, as the article states that the search engines themselves have the ability to shape public opinion and drive people to vote in a certain way if they really want to. We've seen that information come out showing that they were trying to specifically get out certain groups to support Democratic candidates and suppress other groups who were seeking out conservative candidates. All right, guys. Well, I think that's all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.